but I have never had the UTI. Can you imagine this blessing? I got no penis, and I fuck like hell.
Oh, smeared in honey, put into a pit, and eaten by wild hyenas. Sounds fair.
Listen, the more you drink at a Shabbat table, the more the stories make sense.
With a little bit of penis, imagine what I could do.
Hello, hello. It is time for another episode, minisode, companion minisode to We Are Trash People, where I, Emily Pineapple, and you,
Forrest, the keeper of the Canon,
talk about the comedian or person who is going to be on the next episode of CGP Chris Gethard Presents this Wednesday, it's August.
No, it's July 31st.
July 31st, the last moment of July, and we're talking about Robby Hoffman.
Yes, I'm so excited.
Robby Hoffman, oh my God. We saw her do this show that she's going to do, the Chris Gethard show with Robby Hoffman. We saw her do it in LA that time that she did it, and you can see it online right now, and we're going to see her do it in all of its glory with more things.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get to see it come to public access, because I think if you had asked me back when we went to go see it, will she get the chance to do the Chris Gethard show on MNN with Gethard's time slot?
Gethard? Oh.
Well, because Gethard's on paternity leave. And
right now?
That's what she said in the video talking about her copyright infringement where she stole the Chris Gethard show away from him.
So she succeeded where Justin Linville has failed.
Oh, that's a really good point. She actually rose up and became the official host of the Chris Gethard show.
That's true. She named herself the official host, and she wrenched it from Chris. She overthrew him, I think, successfully. It's a running joke on CGP, the actual companion podcast.
Oh, yeah. The Justin Linville part is a running joke on the official CGP podcast.
Yeah, that Chris wants him to overthrow himself. Chris wants Justin to overthrow Chris.
And become the host of the CGP podcast. And Justin, thus far, hasn't wanted to do that.
Well, he's now trapped inside of an iPad, so it's going to be a little difficult.
But Justin Bot might be able to take it over.
Justin Bot might take it over. Justin Bot might. But Robby Hoffman already has.
Exactly.
And I'm just very excited to talk about her. Here's her bio. Her bio is from her website, which is what, robbyhoffman.com? Well, while you look that up, I'm going to read her bio. Robby Hoffman is a tiny ex-Hasidic queer stand-up comedian, writer, and true original.
It is robbyhoffman.com.
Oh, awesome. I'm brilliant. A writer on The Chris Gethard Show, True TV, Workin' Moms, Netflix, and Baroness von Sketch Show, IFC, which I really want to see.
Yeah, I do too.
Oh my goodness, 3 ladies doing sketch comedy, which, gosh, just doesn't happen enough at all, ever. In 2019, Robby won a Daytime Emmy Award for her writing work on Odd Squad, PBS, and I know some things about her.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I know some things. I listened to the podcast How Come, spelled C-U-M, this morning, where she was a guest. And it was the guest on the Jewish episode. So it was an interview with her and the guy who invented J-Swipe, which is Tinder for Jewish people.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah. It's really cool. She was born in a Hasidic Jewish community in New York after her mother and father converted to Hasidic Judaism. Hasidic Judaism is an ultra-Orthodox version of Judaism. So it's similar to the ultra-Orthodox versions of any religion. And her mother decided to take her and her 10 siblings. That's
a lot of siblings.
Yeah, she's kind of in the middle. Her mother took all of her siblings out of it once her brothers became school-aged, because in that community, boys go to yeshiva, which is a specifically Jewish school. And their education did not include real subjects. It's only religious teaching. They don't get to learn science. They don't get to learn history, things like that. In at least that particular extremely Orthodox Hasidic community in New York where she was. Girls can learn other stuff. Yeah, it was really interesting. So her mother, who is apparently a really strong intellectual, moved them away from her father, divorced her father, and took the kids, which is super unusual in Hasidic communities. Usually the kids like belong to the father, quote unquote. But no, she got the kids, took them to Montreal, and proceeded to secularize the family. You know, you keep traditions. In fact, the first thing that she said when we went to see the Chris Gethard show with Robby Hoffman, it was a Saturday night, or was it Friday night?
I think it was I don't remember.
It was some relation to Shabbat, which is Friday, and you're supposed to light candles if you are to practice that particular tradition of Shabbat. And she goes like, Shabbat Shalom, like, who lit candles? Who lit their candles? And now every Friday when I don't light my Shabbat candles, despite having...
It was a Friday.
It was a Friday. Yeah. So, yeah, every Friday I look at my Shabbat candle holders and her voice rings in my head asking me if I've lit the candles. And then I have still yet to. It is something I would like to do just because it sounds nice.
Yeah.
It's a
Be
thing.
some nice ambiance.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
Nice tradition.
Yeah. Get back to my roots a little bit. But yeah, so she grew up there. Her mother is apparently someone who loves learning and loves communities, like really likes joining and being parts of different communities in a really warm and not bad way. Like she doesn't join cults.
Right. She likes like wholesome, supportive communities.
Yeah. And so she's now a Messianic Jew.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, which is really interesting. Her brothers and sisters are kind of like, well, you know, she likes it. It's not doing any harm. Like, when was the last time Messianic Jews? I don't want to say that because there's probably a time when Messianic Jews have done something really, really horrible.
It's also one of those things where in our modern era, making any bold prediction that no group will do harm will age badly, and then someone will listen to this in the future and it'll be like, well, you didn't know, but blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I mean, at least they're in Canada, so I suppose gun laws are different up there. Do they have less shootings? There was a really bad one in California just now, which is why it's on my mind.
They do have fewer.
Well, Robby Hoffman is really, really funny. It was really cool to learn more about how she grew up and her history and how she came to her queer identity, which was really interesting as well. So if you check out How Come, very cool stuff.
And we'll include a link to that in the show notes.
Yeah. In 2018, Robby was named one of Comedy Central's Up Next comedians and on Conan O'Brien's Comics to Watch list. She was a headliner for the New York Comedy Festival in 2018 and recorded her first 1-hour TV special, I'm Nervous, at JFL 42 in Toronto for Crave TV in 2019. Will we ever be able to see that, do you think? Do you think it's going to go online?
I hope so. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it eventually ends up somewhere, but I couldn't find anywhere that it was currently streaming in the US. And IMDb even only listed a Canadian release date. So hopefully, because I would love to see it. I'm sure it's a great special.
It reminds me of like that meme where they show dogs that have the vests on that just say nervous.
Oh, like the Thunder shirts and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's for, you know, if you want people to not just randomly approach your dog out of nowhere.
Oh, those vests. Yeah.
So have that image in your head as you listen to the rest of this podcast. And she'll be at the Montreal Just for Laughs Festival this summer.
That actually just happened.
Oh my gosh.
It just happened last week.
You missed it.
It just, I'm sorry, everyone listening. You just missed it.
Well, they've been supporting her for a really, really long time. She's been doing stuff with and for them for like at least 5 years.
Yeah, we found stuff going all the way back to I think it was, we found stuff going back quite a ways, to 2013, that was tied to Just for Laughs, which is great. It's wonderful to see them supporting someone for that consistent of a period. And as you mentioned, she was one of Comedy Central's Up Next comedians, and so she performed at Clusterfest in 2018.
There's a really, really excellent clip of this online. It's one of the best produced. I mean, obviously it was for Clusterfest. So there are a lot of videos of her stand-up. But I think that this is one of the ones that has like really, really excellent audio. The other ones are kind of like just shot in clubs.
Yeah, this was Comedy Central shooting it for Comedy Central. So it's lit great, shot well, sounds wonderful. And it's some of her current great material, which is really good to see. But as you mentioned, there's some older sets as well that were shot in clubs. And in one of them, she mentioned that Judge Judy is even more judgmental than she is, than her persona is.
They have a similar energy.
They do, and I never noticed it until she made that joke, and now I can't unsee it.
In some of the older sets, she does a Judge Judy impression.
It's a really good Judge Judy impression.
Oh my God.
She nails that Judge Judy impression.
Yeah. She talks about how she... Sorry, this joke beyond kills me. She makes a lot of... Well, she's a female comedian. She's a woman. So she makes jokes from a woman's perspective. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm seen. And...
I'm always seen, so...
She said in her How Come interview, she was like, when we see lineups that are 10 women and 1 man for at least 300 years, then we can start talking equality. Like, there's still like 2 women CEOs of like all of the major big, I don't know how many number of companies.
The Fortune 500?
Sure. There's like, it went from like 2 to 8 or something, and people are getting all freaked out about it. And she's like, oh my God.
It didn't even get to double digits and people are freaking out?
I don't think so.
Oh boy.
But she talks about how she'll start putting her hand on the smalls of men's backs when she asks them a question so that they feel supported the way that she does when they do that.
That was such a good joke. Like,
did you know
no.
how common of an occurrence that is?
No, because who would do, I mean, I would say who would do that, but the answer is men.
Like, it happens beyond often. It's happened so often to me that I actually, like, despite that feeling uncomfortable, I don't react to it. I've like numbed myself out to it because it's just so expected, especially when I'm in a room with men of a certain age.
I just like don't touch people I'm talking to. So it, like, that idea is like...
Well, she does the joke a lot better.
The joke's great, and part of why I loved that joke is it raised awareness of a real problem, which is that creepy social interaction of putting your hand on the small of a person's back that you're just talking to and having a casual conversation with.
I think that we should have an awareness campaign about that. I want Robby to run an awareness campaign about men just touching women.
I mean, it sounds awful. I think there should be an awareness because it sounds really shitty.
It could tie in with the Hasidic thing. There's a tradition among certain ultra-Orthodox and other modern Orthodox, etc., Jewish communities where men and women, I mean, this happens in some other religious communities as well. Men and women who are not related to each other or married aren't allowed to touch each other after a certain age. So like you can be friends, obviously, with, well, I mean, I guess not obviously. You can be friends with people of a different gender than yourself, but you're not supposed to touch.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, shouldn't touch the small of back of the friends of the same gender if they're not, haven't explicitly said, hey, it's cool. Still weird.
There are some interviews that you can see of her online. One is from Sled Island 2018, which is a music festival in Calgary, Canada, where she also talks a lot about her history, her comedic influences.
I thought that part was really interesting. She says that she didn't idolize comedians growing up, so a lot of her early comedy was just her doing what was authentic to her, or even drawing on like family members and people she knew.
Yeah, it was mostly stories,
Yeah.
like stories about her life and drawing on the comedic stylings of her family members. And she's inspired by Joan Rivers, obviously.
Oh,
Hella
yeah.
Joan Rivers energy in her.
And then she also said Howard Stern,
Oh, my
which
love.
also like some of the
The way that she pauses.
yeah, that's exactly what it is. I was gonna say it's the way that she talks, but it's not the way she talks. It's the way it's the pausing
Yeah.
for effect.
Yeah, even in the clips that I put at the beginning, I really liked those jokes. So I actually had to cut out a little bit of the pause. Like you wouldn't be able to tell because it's
yeah.
just a few seconds. But seriously, just watch her biblical proportions videos and that Just for Laughs video. The Just for Laughs one? No, the Comedy Central one.
Yeah.
That's where I got those. Watch them. It's even better with her face and her gestures.
Oh no, those videos are all amazing. And then one thing that comes up that really grinds her gears is pizza culture. Not pizza itself, but the sort of like she talks about the 35-year-old men who talk about pizza like it's the best thing they've in the universe ever invented.
It kind of is. I mean, but you know, she also talks about how while writing for the Chris Gethard show,
Oh yeah.
professional wrestling comes up. The interviewer was like, "Oh, I love professional wrestling, and that's a Chris Gethard show thing." And she's like, "Yeah, it comes up almost every day and is quashed almost every day, but it's something that really helps the writers and the men on the show deal with their homosexuality in a way that is safe for them."
I just love that she said Chris specifically brought it up in almost every writer's meeting, and then it got shot down. But did get 2 wrestling themed episodes on the air, which should be good enough for anyone's career. And then also she has a really interesting and insightful take about how her work as a writer and her work as a stand-up comedian reinforce each other and feed each other.
Yeah, she talks about how she, writer's room from 10 a.m. to whatever.
Yeah.
Goes home, has dinner, then she hits the clubs, not the dance clubs, the comedy clubs, and, does stand up and then is home and in bed by 11, which I'm like, wow, she can have it all. But how that really energizes her and gives her ideas that she wouldn't otherwise have. Like writing feeds the comedy feeds the writing. She can come back to the room the next day with all sorts of ideas,
Yeah, and it's really it's cool to get that sort of view inside her process and how those dual roles complement each other. It was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who's never done stand-up comedy or been in a writer's room, it was very interesting.
It's like, I know a lot about writers' rooms. I listen to a lot of podcasts. So, yeah. Have you ever heard of Mark Bernardin and Kevin Smith? Yeah. He wrote Clerks. I don't know.
That's like, I listen to The Nerdist. I know all about being a stand-up comedian.
I watched the Chris Gethard show. You could say I'm a pretty big expert on improv comedy. But yeah, her frequent collaborator, the only one that we were able to sort of grab out of note from as people watching things on YouTube that have her name in them, is the Just for Laughs Festival.
Yeah, because as we mentioned, they've supported some of her work since at least 2013. They were part of the Comedy of Biblical Proportions YouTube series. They also helped create I'm Nervous, her comedy special. And then she just did the early evening show at Just for Laughs 2019, which we'll get into more a little later in this episode.
Ooh,
a tease.
So going into her previous works, as found on YouTube by us over the past 3 days. So if you have other stuff of hers, I want to see it. Put it on the Reddit. Shout out to Old Paint Can on Reddit. Yeah. You have been doing the Lord's work, sir. I watch all of the things. This person just posts everything. They had a Justin Linville set up the other day. But yeah, if you're listening and you see any Robby Hoffman videos posted there, I'll see it.
Yeah, no, we'll see it if it goes up there. But
the first thing that we have of hers is Robby Hoffman autobiography from 2011, where she does person on the street interviews to promote her show, Robby Hoffman autobiography. And yeah, we've learned that Verdun is apparently a rough borough of Montreal. Do they call them boroughs? Is that a normal
The internet
thing?
called it a borough.
Okay.
I don't know if the residents of Montreal refer to it that way. If you don't, please email us and tell us what you call them, because that sounds interesting if it's a different name.
I've only heard that used for New York, so I assumed it was a New York thing.
I have too.
We have neighborhoods here and cities.
And that's the thing. We have, if we were in the East Coast, I think some of our independent cities might be boroughs of San Francisco. But over here, it's a whole different city. Because San Francisco's no, we're a city and a county and no one else can be part of us. Yeah. But then also in 2011, to get back on track, Robby Hoffman did Robby Hoffman and Late Night Snacks, where she reviewed smoked meat at Schwartz's and what looked like a gyro at Bustan's. And then she goes to those late night eateries and hangs out with customers and staff and has a really fun conversation about how mustache hairs is the secret ingredient in one of the sandwiches at Bustan's.
This was really cute. I'm not sure if this was to promote another thing of hers or if it was for some sort of local TV or
I'm not sure.
Internet. Maybe just for fun.
It seemed really fun.
It was. It was
really
fun
for us to watch,
yeah.
But it also seemed fun to go out and make.
Yeah. In 2012, she was, on French?
Well,
what does that mean?
It's just a set where she talks about learning French.
Oh,
it's jokes about learning French because Canada.
Oh, yeah. This is just a stand-up. She said at some point in some interview, I think that it was during her TED Talk, that whenever people are introducing male comedians, they usually have this long list of things to describe this person, even if they haven't really done much. They're you can see them at this place and this place and this place where they do open mics, but, they don't mention that. And whenever a woman comes up, it's, and now a very funny girl. And she was introduced as a very funny girl in this one. No shade on whoever that host was. But I was oh my God. Yeah.
I really related to her joke about learning another language that explicitly genders inanimate objects. Because when I was learning German, I was so confused about why chairs were a certain gender, and she has a whole thing about how, what do you mean that chair is a girl? She has 4 dicks, referencing the legs. And obviously
in German, is a chair a girl as well?
Oh, I don't remember. I don't remember my German. All I remember is how to say the word oil, because it's Benzin, because I had to do a play in German, and that was the funniest line, because you had to deliver it, go with that
Benzin. Well, now you see, you are an expert on comedy. You have performed, even, Forrest. Not only do you listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yes, I also performed in front of 10 people. No, not even 10 people. 4 people in a classroom. So I'm obviously a total comedy expert.
Complete expert. In 2012, there's another video, Robby Comedy Works. It's where she, it's just a set of hers at a place called Comedy Works, I believe in Montreal. Yeah. And this is part of a whole series of videos where a lot of her jokes are the same, but you can see them be slightly different. It's really cool. You don't often get to see, unless you continue going to the same open mics or the same shows locally, workout rooms. You don't usually get to see comedians really work on their bits, like change them up and try different things. But this is really cool because you get to see the evolution of a lot of her jokes.
Yeah, I love that and that's one of my favorite things about sort of the current YouTube age of comedy, because so many more comedians have uploaded sets where they're developing, and getting to see that evolution is really cool because you don't get to see that with some of the greats as much, because it was all early when that stuff wasn't recorded.
Yeah.
But I would love to get what an early Steve Martin set looked like and see how it differed from when it was on a special. And so it's a wonderful blessing of our current.
Can you imagine such a blessing?
The internet is good sometimes. Sometimes. She also appered in the video Comedians on Bikes Getting Tofu, which is a pitch perfect comedy of comedians in cars getting coffee. This was back in 2012, and it was created by Jess Solomon, who serves as the Jerry Seinfeld of this, and Robby is the special comedian guest who reacts to the idea of riding on the back of a bike just like I would, which is I don't wait, but what?
Do people do this? I had never in my life actually saw humans, a person riding on the back of someone else's bike that wasn't in their own dedicated seat. It looks so dangerous. Yeah,
I think it happens in Bicycle Thief, the Italian movie, but I don't know if I've seen it in real life.
Well, it happened in this video. She does some fun observational comedy and split this giant BLT wrap. It's about the size of a head. I don't know. Go check out this vegan restaurant. Oh crap! Do you know how to pronounce French?
Vive? No.
Ox Vivres.
I guess I answered your question. No, I don't know how to pronounce French.
Well, go to Ox Vivres.
When I went to France, all I learned was how to apologetically say I don't speak French.
She talks about how beards are made of pubic hair and are like a big bush on your face.
Yep, it's true. From firsthand experience, I know that's true.
In 2013, she has a whole series of videos called Comedy of Biblical Proportions, where she comedically interprets Bible passages. It's amazing. Oh my God, I'm absolutely blanking on. I feel like this is the episode where I can pull out all of my meager Jew cred. I'm I know Jewish things. I went to an adult Jew camp when I was in college. Wow. Well, it's the word for when you make up new things about the Bible. Not make up, when people interpret things about the Bible. There's a special word for it, and she's doing it, contributing to the long tradition of Jews doing those things.
I loved this whole thing. I mean, it was amazing. The joke about Noah's Ark being a booze cruise was not only hilarious, it had a shout out to Diddy, better known as the booker for the Chris Gethard show. I was surprised that an obscure, behind the scenes person could get referenced in one of these jokes, but he did.
Some of them are in a church, and some of them are at a Shabbat table.
But they're all shot real well. The staging is beautiful in all of them.
These were for Just for Laughs.
Yeah, Just for Laughs helped make these.
Yeah.
With Bean Duck Video.
Yeah. And they're great. Favorites are about Jonah and the whale. She talks about that debate.
Yeah, that was really good.
Samson and Delilah.
I loved the Samson and Delilah one.
Yeah, about the first instances of BDSM in the Bible and women drugging men.
It's true.
Yeah. Great stuff.
Oh,
really,
and there was
great
also
stuff.
the neighbor. The neighbor's one was really good.
Mm-hmm. It's love thy neighbor. It's well, how many neighbors did people really have in biblical times? Did they imagine high rises when they were saying this?
Did they imagine my drunk neighbor trying to get into my apartment?
This happened?
No. It was in the video.
Oh.
Not to me, no. I have never lived in a place where a drunk person tried to get in my apartment.
I have.
Oh, I know. As loyal listeners to We Are Trash People will
Jesus.
remember, I've never had someone try to break into my house.
She has, in 2014, the next thing is, that we were able to find is a TED Talk, Montreal TEDx, Montreal Woman Conference, titled What's It to You? And she shares a lot about her history, a lot of great stuff about feminism and being a woman in comedy, about being a writer, a lot of just beautiful, poetic observations, honestly. And the best story, she had a great uncle who was really into putting chairs by bus stops because there weren't enough chairs. There wasn't seating at these bus stops, and how he would do this every day. And there was a whole article written about the mysterious chairman, and he would have the kids help him with his chair quest, and they were so embarrassed. There's a whole part about how he would put out chairs. The city acknowledged what he was doing. Well, because they would take the chairs away and then he would just come and put more chairs. They finally acknowledged it by putting out a bench, which he acknowledged by putting slightly fewer chairs. Yeah.
I love that hero that she's related to.
Oh, yeah. Absolute hero. It reminded me of an anecdote that I believe we heard at the Chris Gethard show with Robby Hoffman. A friend of hers who talked about working in a writer's room with her and how the matter she was about some sort of thing happening in the office, like someone leaving the bread butts out or leaving bowls out or something like that. Like the more angry she was, the more likely it was that she is the person who did that.
Yeah, I think that was Greg Doris on the Chris Gethard show with Robby Hoffman that we went to, who was also a Gethard writer. And then the next thing we found was Odd Squad, which she worked on from 2015 to 2018. In Odd Squad, young government agents Olympia and Otis use math to investigate strange occurrences in their hometown. Robby has been credited with a number of roles on this show, including junior story editor, and writer. And as a writer, this is where she won her Emmy in 2019. So really, every time we've said her name, we should have been saying Emmy Award winner Robby Hoffman.
Yeah.
So we apologize, Robby, for not giving you that due credit each time.
We've messed up.
It's our fault.
I mean, at least we haven't just been saying a really funny girl.
It's true. We have been saying her name and listing her credits. So I guess we're still in the middle of our long introduction.
This is a kids show.
Yeah.
It's really cute. It's live action.
It's live action. Yeah. It's great. It's really good.
I'm sorry. I kept cutting you off.
It deserves the Emmy. It deserves the Emmy for sure. And we watched the episode Shapely University / Slow Day, which was written by Robby, according to IMDb. And it's just so cute.
Yeah. Would show to kids. 10 out of 10.
They use shapes to predict where a skunk monster is going to fly and make everything smell. And it's just so good.
Yep. We have another video comedy from the Comedy Bar Toronto in 2015, which is something that she put on her YouTube page. And the best part about it is that the way that it's shot, you can very visibly see in the light one audience member, like right in front of her, this one kid. So it looks like she's doing stand-up to this one guy who's just dying.
I mean, they're having a good time for sure. They're loving it.
He's dying and like looking behind him to crack up with his friends, presumably, not just no one. They're like, oh my God, that's you. Like, ah. So that's really great. That's a really fun one.
Yeah.
She talks about flowers and how amazing they are.
I loved the flowers joke. I just was dying when I heard that.
and also about how bad things happen near ravines and other esoteric, lesser known bodies of water. Like bad things don't happen in a stream, they happen in the gulch.
And then Odd Squad comes back because there was also an Odd Squad movie, and Robby was a junior story editor on that. We haven't seen that, but we're sure it's got to be just as good as the TV show if it's the movie. I mean, that show with higher production value?
Oh, yeah. No, it's really cute. It's not the type of kids show where it's like, oh my God, no, but anyone can and should watch this. Like Phineas and Ferb or like Teen Titans Go.
No, it's a kids show that is definitely like a kids show, not a family show. Yeah. Because it's so educational with things that to me isn't a mystery anymore. It's like, oh yeah, parallel lines. What are those? No, I got it. I got it. I'm good.
Parallel lines. How do they work?
But as a kid, I definitely like watched shows that were like, oh, sorry, I just got that. But as a kid, I definitely watched shows that are like, hey, parallel lines. And I'm like, what are those? Whoa, they don't meet?
What?
Ever? They just go on forever and never meet?
Ever and ever. It's the saddest story of all time. They will never meet. But yeah.
Misconnections case.
She was then, of course, a writer on The Chris Gethard Show from 2017 to 2018, which was 26 episodes of the true TV version of TCGS. And she also appeared in the series finale as Weenier Feet Bobbins, which is a reference to the fan favorite character Weenie Feet Bobbins, a Victorian street orphan with hot dogs for feet, who first appeared in the crowdsourced character contest 2. Someone wrote about how they rewatched that episode on the Reddit, or maybe the first one, and how great it was.
I think it was the first Weenie Feet Bobbins. I love that character. It's so silly.
Yeah.
She also appeared as Robby, not Weenie or Feet Bobbins. Robby also appeared as herself in the episodes Pop Brownie Roulette and Pandora's Call-In Topics. And then she also did a web video where she and Anthony Porowski from Queer Eye gave Patrick Hotner, the TCGS booker who isn't Diddy, a makeover. And it's really good. It's a really funny video.
It's one of those like day in the writer's room or day in the Gethard offices with a writer.
Yeah.
That Carmen Christopher had one as well.
Yeah. And she says that the reason that that Patrick needs a makeover is because he's the face of the show to celebrities who want to get on the show. And there's definitely people who have refused to be on the show because they see how Patrick is dressed and are like, no, this can't be a good show.
Yep.
It's a good one. It's a great video.
In 2017, she was in a feature called Space and Time. She plays Hannah. And the film's director, Sean Gerard, appeared on the first episode of the Chris Gethard Show with Robby Hoffman. And it's scheduled to come out on August 31st, 2019. So almost oh my God, it's exactly 1 month, right? From her episode?
Oh, you're right.
Is it the 30th or 31st?
31st. You're right.
1 month from the Chris Gethard Show with Robby Hoffman. You can see her in a feature. And that's really cool.
Alongside the Pink Power Ranger.
Yeah.
Amy Jo Johnson.
Yeah. So here's the description. As they quickly approach their 30th birthdays, academic physicist Siobhan. I'm sure I've heard this name before, but never heard it spelled this way. Shibian? Siobhan. I'm sure this is a super common name that I've heard a million times before and have no idea how to pronounce.
I've definitely heard it. It's an Irish name. I just am bad at translating it into how to pronounce it.
Well, as they approach their 30th birthdays, she and her photographer boyfriend, Sean, realize they failed to answer key questions about themselves and their relationship. Their devotion to each other is further tested when Siobhan decides to chase a research opportunity that would move them to Geneva. Sounds I mean, I really am just really curious how that name is pronounced now.
I'm also just curious what Robbie's role is. What does the mysterious Hannah do in the movie?
Yeah. So that's really, really exciting.
And then in 2018, Robby was writing on Workin' Moms, which is a Canadian sitcom that you can see if you're in the US on Netflix, but it's on the CBC in Canada. And she got writing credit for the episode Consent and was in the writer's room. Netflix described the show as maternity leave is over and it's time for these 4 moms to return to work while navigating kids, bosses, love, and life in modern day Toronto.
Can you tell we haven't watched this one?
I watched the trailer.
Yeah?
Trailer looks funny. Huh. I mean, stuff.
I didn't realize she was in the writer's room. I probably would have watched it a lot earlier. I was just like...
She mentioned that she was in the writer's room in the Sled Island video.
Mm-hmm.
But it looked fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely a sitcom, but it looks like a fun one.
Yeah. I think I'm actually going to check it out.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
I definitely ignore 90% of what Netflix tells me to watch. I'm just like, this is another thing with a bad ending. Just yeah. So she was also a writer on the Baroness Vaughn sketch show, which is a Canadian sketch comedy series which aired on CBC in Canada and IFC in the US. She was a story editor on 10 episodes, and we'll be putting the trailer for season 3 in our show notes. It's a female troupe of comedians.
And the trailer's funny for this, too. It looks great. I really want to check out Baroness Von Sketch Show. 3
ladies sketch comedians, much like the 3 busy Debras. There's not many sketch shows.
No, there's not. I'm glad that that's changing, it seems like. But yeah, there's definitely not enough. And then in 2019, as we've talked about already, Robby did her special, Robby Hoffman, I'm Nervous. And it, as I mentioned, aired in Canada on Crave TV, and it was a co-production with the Just for Laughs Comedy Festival. I really hope that gets to be watchable in the US because I have to see that. Like, Robby's so great. I'm a little, it's a little frustrating that I can't see it.
I know, right?
Which I guess is how the rest of the world feels for a lot of shows that aren't available internationally. So, fair's fair, I suppose.
And then the Chris Gethard show with Robby Hoffman happened in 2019, which we were at the Lyric Hyperion Theater in Los Angeles. Her guests were John Thomas, her tennis coach, Sophia Cleary, an interdisciplinary artist who runs Smile Knife every second Sunday at the Lyric Hyperion, Allie Beardsley from College Humor, Cameron Jordan,
I think.
There are 2 I's in there.
Yes.
An LA-based comedian, Kathleen Monroe, Robby's former roommate, and star of the show Patriot, Kevin Shoestack. Why can't I read? He wrote for This Hour Has 22 Minutes.
It's like a legendary Canadian comedy show, so that's really cool.
Greg Doris, TCGS writer and consulting producer and story producer on the My Brother and Me TV show.
Which was directed by J.D. Amato.
Crazy. And Sean Gerard, the filmmaker who wrote, directed, and produced Space and Time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then that was such a success.
And you can see that whole thing on YouTube, by the way.
Yeah, she has uploaded it to YouTube now, and we are going to include the link to that in our show notes. And she also retweeted us, tweeting out that you can watch that on YouTube. So thank you, Robby, for retweeting us. That was so cool. But that was such a success that she was able to bring the Chris Gethard show to Just for Laughs under the name The Early Evening Show with Robby Hoffman. She even in the description for the YouTube version of the Chris Gethard show with Robby Hoffman says that it's the same show, but she changed the name because Gethard was going to sue her. And then has an asterisk and says, okay, Gethard wasn't going to sue me, but I just love drama. But the show, the Early Evening Show, was described as like the Chris Gethard show meets the old Chelsea Handler show meets Kramer's show when he got the Merv Griffin set. Means nothing you've ever seen before with S acidic queer mental case and true original Robby Hoffman. That is an amazingly perfect description
Right?
for that show. And then her guests for the inaugural early evening show were Trana Wintour, who's a self-described spiritual, or Trana Wintour, because Anna Wintour. Puns are key. Pronunciation is key for getting puns across verbally. And she's a self-described spiritual, pop culture obsessed, fashion-hungry, transgender comedian, singer, producer, and writer. She's basically Barbara Streisand minus the fame, fortune, and cloned dogs.
Oh, God.
I didn't know.
As I
that?
read that, yeah, that's a thing that Barbara Streisand has done.
Wow.
Yeah. Donald Rawlings was another person on that show, a comedian who has appeared in The Wire, Chappelle's Show, and the new trailer for Jay and Silent Bob Reboot.
Yeah, he's the cop who yells at them to come out with their hands up.
Oh, yeah, he's in the trailer.
He's like, the first person you see in the trailer is him. I know, because I went to his website and it's like, hey.
Robby's sister, or one of Robby's sisters, her ex-girlfriend, Ryan Abrams, the only man she's had sex with.
And then in the thing I saw, it said that she had sex with him 3 times for a total of 7 thrusts. And given the phrasing, I'm like, that's definitely a joke that Robby makes in that show. And in a review, Exclaim Canada, who's the person who mentioned that, and mentioned that Robby's sister, ex-girlfriend, and Ryan were on, said, quote, "During the early evening show, the audience got a full hour of pure unscripted Hoffman wit. She has something to say about everything and everyone and everything, and biting remarks roll off her tongue with unwavering confidence. Robby Hoffman knows who she is, what she's good at, and her no-fucks attitude kept the room in stitches all night."
It's really fun because in an early set from, I think, 2012, she mentions to an audience member, she starts doing like crowd work, and she's like, "Oh, I'm not good at crowd work." And I'm like, that's a lie. One, she's amazing at crowd work.
Oh, yeah,
I think
even then
she
was
already
good at
knew
it, but
that she was amazing, but it's a huge part of what she does.
especially the one we saw, that live Chris
Yeah.
Gethard show, there was so much crowd work to open it to get us all like ready to go.
Mm-hmm. She's, very fun. Very fun. A reason to be in the audience.
Oh yeah. No, I'm jealous, honestly, of the live audience for all of the CGPs, but especially this one, because that audience interaction was such a key part of the Chris Gethard show with Robby Hoffman's first episode that I'm sure it will also be this time around.
Yeah. And you can see her this Wednesday, July 31st, live on chrisgeth.com/live or the MNN website.
Or if you live in New York, the channel.
Actual studio or the MNN studio. You are correct.
Yes.
But if you're in New York,
Well, I'm at the
just
channel,
go.
but you
go
should
to
go.
the show.
Yeah.
Go. And yeah, or I mean, you can see it on YouTube later.
Yes.
Just, if you're that kind of person. But yeah, you can see her in the future on Neil Hamburger Live on this Sunday, August 4th at the Satellite in Los Angeles. She'll be a special guest.
And that'll be a great show. Neil Hamburger is a character who's performed in like that old corny Borscht Belt comedian manner, and so I think that'll be a great show.
I don't know who Borscht Belt is, but I'm imagining a belt that is filled with borscht, like the beet soup. It's like a tube belt with borscht in it, and you can open it like a flask and drink your borscht.
I was going to explain it, but I don't want to ruin that image. That's so much more interesting than what it actually is.
So, Forrest, what do you think is going to be on this show? What do you think this show is going to be like? We've seen a version of this show before, but what do you think it's going to be like in 2 days from time of recording, Wednesday, July 31st?
I'm really excited that it's happening in New York, because the Chris Gethard show with Robby Hoffman has thus far never happened in New York. And I know that when we went to go see it, we were like, do you think people from the Gethard hosted era of TCGS will be there?
No, the answer was no.
The answer turned out to be no. But do you think people from the Gethard hosted era of the Chris Gethard show, like, I just wouldn't be surprised if she can lean more heavily into evoking the Chris Gethard show this time, using like having Murph or someone come on.
It's not in any way. It does not feel like a ripoff of the Chris Gethard show. I mean, one, because the Chris Gethard show itself has taken so many different forms, but even though she called it the Chris Gethard show with Robby Hoffman, like, it was her show.
Yeah, like, it captures the sort of the anarchic spirit of the Chris Gethard show, where, like, literally you feel like anything could happen, but that spirit manifests in a very different way because it's filtered through her voice, not through the various people who were on the public access TCGS's voice, and ultimately Chris's. But, like, it does feel like a descendant, but like how CGP is a descendant, but it's still very different. So it's not the Chris Gethard show. It's the Robby Hoffman show. What if he just says it is the Chris Gethard show this time? Oh, I mean, I think it'll be similar where it'll be a sort of crazy fun talk show that feels Gethard-esque, but is its own thing. But I wouldn't be surprised if they get someone connected to TCGS on. Like, what if David Bloveband is on as himself, though? Not as the human fish. And fictional character Riley Sulliner? Yeah, well, he's about to host soon, so he probably... Well, he'll be there to promote Klon. Oh, you're right. He probably will promote Klon. Yeah, I'm really excited. But what do you think it's going to be? Dicks. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, do you think it's going to be a reenactment of Looking at Dicks in the Dark, A New Low? I mean, probably. Either that or, like, her historic 7 thrusts. It will perhaps be the balls that made her gay. That's one of her jokes in one of the sets. That was also a good joke. They're like, what, little prunes covered in sweaty hair? Yeah. As a response to, like, what made you gay? It's like, I don't know. Men? Like, I don't want to sleep with them. That fact. Checks out. The dictionary says. Oh my God. Webster defines lesbian as. But yeah, check her out. I'm hella excited. You're hella excited. We're all hella excited. This July 31st. The last CGP of July, closing out the month strong. Yeah, and there's a ton of Robby Hoffman stuff to see. If you haven't seen any of it before, after you see her show, I highly recommend the TED Talk as well, especially if you just want to, like, show your friends, like, oh, but, like, these really normal, talented people do this show. And then she'll be doing her, like, very prescient TED Talk. It's just beautiful. It's a lot of, like, jokes and storytelling, but also, like, really lovely observations about performance and performance art. Yeah. And being a female comedian, all of those things. So you can trick them into watching CGP and the Chris Gethard show. It's legitimately moving. That is definitely a good intro. It is. But yeah, see it.
This I call Angry Gethard Fan Segment. And anybody here is pissed. Because they wanted Gethard and got me. Come join me. Come join me. You get free brown water. You can come tell me why you hate women. Come on.